Okay, everybody, we're going to get started, everybody. We're going to get started. Let's give a big round of applause for the second Fly event. Everybody have seats? Everybody paid? For those who haven't paid, you can talk to Jules. There's drinks and food. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to have 4 storytellers first, then we'll have a little break, and then we'll have 4 more storytellers, okay? So a couple things I want you to remember is, first of all, this QR code is, if you get excited about this and you want to maybe do this later at some point, that will send me an email telling me that you want to be part of this for next time. And the theme for next time is Lost, okay? The theme for tonight is Out of Bounds. Out of Bounds, okay? So, first of all, let's see, was there anything? So yeah, there's drinks, there's food. I think that's it. Oh, the music. Jules, is it possible to turn the music? Oh, and speak closer. Oh, for those who are speaking tonight, you have to speak really close to this microphone, because if you're like this, it doesn't work. So you have to be like this, really right into it. Okay, so I'm going to start tonight by telling my out-of-bounds story. Can you hear me okay? Show of hands, everybody hear me? Closer? Oh. Has this been cleaned? Does anybody have any, okay. Raise it up. Okay, I'm going to raise it up. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's better. Okay, so are you recording? I am recording. Here we go. So, okay, I grew up in a town called Brookline, Massachusetts. Let's hear it. Yeah. And my parents, and my mom is right here right now. Yes, there she is, Carol. Big hand for Carol. She's very shy. She's very shy. So I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, and we belonged to a club called the Longwood Cricket Club. Now, the Longwood Cricket Club was a tennis club that was pretty fancy, as you would expect. My parents were actually, it was very waspy, very fancy. My parents were one of the first the first Jewish family, second Jewish family ever to get into this place. We're Jewish, by the way. And it was fancy. Everybody had to wear all whites. There was 19 clay courts, and there's 25 grass courts that was perfectly manicured. It was a nice place. But for me, it was summer. We would go there every summer, and we would have we'd have tennis clinic. I'd ride my bike there. We'd have tennis clinic, and we'd play tennis in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we'd have lunch. Oh, there's more people coming. Hold one sec. Come on in. Come on in. Okay. So in the afternoon, we'd have lunch. They'd have those hot dogs. I remember on the grill, they would slather them with butter, and they put them on the grill. It was with fries. And the thing was amazing for us is that when we were kids, we could just sign for it. So it was like our first credit experience. We'd sign for it, and I'll just sign for it, and we'd get this stuff. It was amazing. And then in the afternoon, we would go and we'd go swimming, and they'd play backgammon. It sounds very bougie. Yes, it was. All those things are true. It was amazing. So the one thing that was because we were there every year, we got to know all the kids that were part of the club, and there was kids of various ages, and one kid was named Peter Martin, and Peter Martin was a bit of an odd kid. He was kind of scrawny. He was kind of weird. He was a little bit unpredictable. One time I was with him, and he decided it would be a good idea to roll a big tire down a hill into the Boston Marathon where there were runners. Fortunately, someone stopped it. But this was pretty typical for Peter Martin. But he was sort of the human equivalent of There's Nothing Else On. So there was really no other friends my age, perfect. So we became friends. And one of the things that we did was I had a vision one night. I'll never forget this. I had a vision one night, and I thought, okay, you know those candy things you put the quarter in and you turn it, and the candy comes out, and you get like 5 or 6. But I thought, wait a second, if you turn the candy just a little bit, maybe that opening will stay open and the candy will keep coming. It worked. So we would sit out there outside of Stop and Shop in Boston, and we would just jiggle it. If you turn it too far, it would lock. But if you didn't turn it too far and you just sort of jiggled it back and forth, Frank, will you just get the door for me? If you jiggled it back and forth a little bit, the candy would keep coming. So Peter and I, again, because we were friends, but there was a little bit of a competition, we would see who'd get the most. And we'd be there for hours getting candy. And eventually what happened is we had one time, we were there for like an hour, and he got about 100 candies that came out. And he collected it in his cup, and he started walking down the street saying, "We are the champions." He's singing the song, "We are the champions." And I was a little bit pissed off because this was my vision. And he fell, and all the candy went all over the ground. It was dirty, it was gross. He's picking it up with like dirt and rocks and pebbles, puts it back in the cup, and he brings it back to the club and washes them off. And they're these like, those sweet tart things with a hard shell, and it becomes this gooey, sticky mess. I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty good about it. So, but the one thing about this club was that it was the home to the US Pro Tennis Tournament. Now, I don't know if you know what that is, and it doesn't exist anymore, but at the time, it was the coolest thing. It was an actual tennis tournament with all of the best tennis players in the world. Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg, Arthur Ashe, Harold Solomon, Jose Louis Clerc. They would all come to this tennis tournament and they'd play, and these were like the top players in the world at the time. It was amazing. And if you were a boy, you got to be a ball boy if you could throw the ball all the way across the court. The girls were the ushers. It changed later, but for the time, the boys were the ball boys. And the coolest thing about being a ball boy was that you had carte blanche at this tournament. You could come and go as you please. You could bring it. You could do whatever you want. It was the coolest. We met all the players. We did all these cool things. We got clothes from head to toe. I remember we got a less outfit. We had a hat, a shirt, a jacket, pants, socks, shoes. It was just the coolest thing in the world. And it was just we were. And as long as again, I don't know if you guys know what a ball boy is, but basically we were like butlers for the players. We were the ball butlers. So anytime they needed a ball, we would get it. We'd run across the court. We'd do that thing. So Peter and Martin and I were ball boys. I was about 11 at the time. This was 1978. Okay, we were in the center court, in the clay courts, and a player named Victor Pecci was playing. Now, Victor Pecci at the time was a pretty good player. He actually ultimately became, I think, 9th in the world at one point. But he also had beaten Jimmy Connors at one point. But he was also from this Ilie Nastase school of tennis, which, if you remember what Ilie Nastase, he was not a nice guy. He would scream at the umps. He would throw things. He'd break things. There was a lot of tormenting and screaming and yelling, kind of like Connors, kind of like McEnroe. They're all that same camp. So we were on the center court ball boying for this guy, and he hit a ball, and guess what? I forgot to put my words up, but oh well. He hit the ball. Of course, it went out of bounds. And he wasn't happy about it, so he slammed his racket down, and he broke it, and he took it, and he broke it under his thing, and he threw it into the garbage. Now, I saw that racket, and I thought, I want that racket. So the tournament, the match ends. Of course, now Victor Pecci goes on to win the doubles tournament for this thing. Again, he was a pretty good player. He was a Paraguayan player. Anyway, so we saw that the tennis racket was in the garbage, and I went right over to it and picked it up in my hand. And guess what? Peter Martin came over, and he grabbed it using that old middle school trope, I saw it first. And he grabbed it, and I grabbed it. We're arguing about it back and forth. I'm really pissed off. This is mine. I got this racket. He says, no, it's mine. And he grabs the racket out of my hand, and I ran over, and I hit him in the arm as hard as I could. And this little scrawny kid, drops the racket behind him, just closes his eyes, swings up, and goes like this, smacks me in the face. Tooth roll goes through my lip. Blood is everywhere, all over my uniform. I am not happy. Mom isn't happy. She brings me to the hospital that night. But before that happened, he turns out, he saw me bleeding on the floor. We're both shocked, because he's this scrawny kid. Excuse me. Don't have popcorn before you come up here. So he looks at me, and he says, fine, you take it, and throws the racket to me. So that night we go to the hospital. I don't need stitches, thankfully. And we go the next day, and I bring the racket back to the courts, and I bring it up to Victor Pecci, and I said, I told him the whole story. Thank you so much. That's great, thank you. I told him the whole story, and he looked at me, and he smiled, of course, because this was his thing, and he signed it for me. So I had this fantastic racket, and again, he went on to win the doubles tournament. It was like the coolest thing in the world. So I brought the racket home, and I had it out on my shelf for a while, and then eventually it made its way into the closet, and I would, go back and forth and look at it occasionally just to sort of remember this amazing event that I had. And then a little while later, I go off to college, and I come back, And I look in the closet, and there's no racket. And I look everywhere. There is no racket. I'm searching my room. I'm looking under the bed. I'm going everywhere. There is no racket. I call down to my mom, and I say, Mom, where's that racket? She goes, oh, that old broken racket? I threw it away. So, she threw it away. So, I don't have the autographs that I'd collected from all these famous people because I gave it away because I was too cool to keep that. I don't have any of the Aless outfits left over. But I do have something from Peter Martin and Victor Pecci, this permanent scar on my lip. Thanks very much. All right, who's next? Okay. So the next up tonight is Lisa. Lisa is going tonight, and Lisa is from my improv group, and I'm just going to give you this, and I'm going to put your words up before you begin to talk. 1 second, please. Okay.
What? Oh, good Lord. Okay. This is why I didn't ask for when I was going to go.
I know, it's better not.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, Lisa. Here we go. Okay. Lisa Borelli.
Not quite. No, that is not my last name. Moral. Wait, how do you make this go lower? How do you make it go lower?
This one.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. Is that okay? Okay. Wow, okay, hi. I love your sparkly shoes. All right, so something like this would not be complete without an adventures in online dating tale. You're welcome. Yeah, so for those of you who are like wondering if you ever want to do it, you can consider this encouragement, because if I can create a profile and manage it and have amusement and find even love out of the whole thing, you can too. And for those of you who are happily or just comfortably relationshiped, you can consider this, I don't know, we'll just thank each other and you can be done with it. Okay, so I'm going to take us back to the mid-90s. Yes, before dating was online. I was 25 and absolutely convinced I had to be married. So I tried to find a husband by way of the Pacific Sun personal ads. I even included the theme song to Leave It to Beaver in the background of my voice personal, because at 25, I also thought I wanted to be June Cleaver. After a few dates, I realized that strategy was not going to work for me, and I told myself I will never do that again. Funny enough, a year later, I ended up meeting the guy who became the father of my children at the Silver Peso. And ultimately, that strategy didn't work out so well for me either. Jump ahead now to the early 10s, and I have a really good friend at work who had successfully found a partner online, and she told me on a near daily basis I could do that too if I just tried. I got sick of her talking about it, so I finally just relented and signed up for the free 30-day trial on Match. I found the Winks really kind of cringy. I think that was their version of liking or swiping or whatever. It was even cringier when I started seeing guys that were running in my work circles. But what ended it for me before the 30 days was when I started seeing guys who were fathers of kids who were friends of my kids, because those fathers were also friends of my kid's father. Did you follow that? And I did not need him in my business like that. Nope. Delete. And I told myself, I will never do that again. Okay, now we're in November of 2021. My youngest is in her senior year at university. I've pretty much come to accept that I'm an empty nester, much to my chagrin. I had done the work in therapy for a few years, and I did the work in improv too, and those two together, they work really well. And it was time to shake things up a bit. By then, the dating scene was all about the apps, right? So I did some research to find the best app to use in the Bay Area. I went with Hinge. I scraped together 6 pictures of myself that I actually liked because I do not photograph well. I answered the prompts as creatively and clickbaity as possible, and I hit save edits. And oh my God, there were so many fish. Catfish, yes, and as a forever fan of Catfish the movie and TV show, I still watch it. I was able to spot those really easily, but there were so many guys holding fish. They're fresh catch. Little ones, big ones, big ones. Even a couple that were like pictured next to their fresh kills, you know, with the multi-points. There were lots of posing in and on and around cars and trucks and motorcycles and ATVs and rec vans. Even some who lived in their rec vans, like legit didn't have an address. They lived in their rec van. Okay. A lot of profiles were all the photographs they were wearing sunglasses, so you have no idea what they really look like. And I'm like, what you hiding under there, buddy? 3 eyes? I don't know. An unnerving number of pictures with their young children. Now, obviously, I'm not against children. I have my own, but I'm against putting pictures of your young kids on a dating profile. Hello, creeper magnet. Ugh. And so many reclining selfies. On the floor, on the couch, in bed, with a shirt, without a shirt. And I'm like, what angle? I'm gonna take a picture of myself lying down. Like, I did not understand that. Okay, so a couple weeks later, I get the first guy date scheduled for the day after Thanksgiving. It was canceled the day after Thanksgiving by him, about 15 minutes before I needed to walk out the door to go meet him. Something about he decided to be exclusive with somebody else the night before. I'm like, okay. The second guy date was scheduled for the Tuesday following Thanksgiving. I canceled that one a couple days prior because I'd just broken my ankle on a hike the day after Thanksgiving. So I joked that it was the first guy's fault because had he not canceled our date, I wouldn't have gone on that hike and broken my ankle. That was my first break. Third guy date was scheduled for the first week of December. And I know that sounds like I was really busy, but I was committed to this. Like I was doing this. He was one of the reclining selfie guys. I was wearing an ankle boot, so like that canceled each other out, and my expectations were super low. Fortunately, he presented better in person. And at the end of it, he planted a big old kiss on me, and he said, "You are so hot." His delivery needed work, but it was a nice message to hear. So I'm like, oh, maybe this dating thing won't be so bad after all. Next guy, totally into astrology. That's fine, I'm a believer. He wanted to do my chart in advance of us meeting, and then proceeded to share during our date how our charts were only sort of compatible. Next came the guy who made dinner plans with his mates halfway through our date. And I know he did this mid-date because we were supposed to have dinner together, and I heard him on the phone. I called that one Rejected by the Irishman, and then I named them all after that, just for fun. Next came Chugi. If you know, you know. Can't explain that one. We had a phone date scheduled, and when I call him, just a regular phone call, he answered it, but I wanted video, because he wanted a FaceTime. I just asked for it. Okay. Now, for the sake of time, I had to cut out like all my explanations for the names, but I think you're a smart crowd. You'll get it. You'll follow along. And who knows, maybe Gary will do a fly that's prompted with first date, and I'll be back. Okay. Next came Looking for a Mother. Then there was Wounded Boy. The Isolationist. Braces. And for the record, it wasn't because he wore braces. It was because when I asked him what kind of music he likes, his response was, "I'm so sick of music, it's everywhere." Who says that? The one who provided the most fodder, I called 5'5". Now, I'm 5'7" on a good day. I have a history with height-inhibited men. I don't want to be taller. So 5'9" was my minimum. Imagine my mounting disappointment when he arrived 40 minutes late and proved himself to not be 5'9", but, say it with me, 5'5". Okay, but it was during that whole Hinge experience that I figured out why the Pacific Sun and Match attempts didn't work. I was not ready. I was really just bound up within myself. When I was 25, I was so determined to play the game of life, literally. I was really disappointed with myself that I left university without an MRS degree, the Mrs. degree. In the early 10s, I was in super thick of the single mom warrior mode, admittedly codependent on my children for my happiness. I just didn't have space for the whole dating experience. So it was in the late teens when I finally found a therapist who challenged me in all the right ways, and I was actually ready to do the work. And I also found improv at the same time. And I swear to God, therapy and improv, life-changing. Between therapy and improv, I was able to identify the characteristics and behaviors and thought patterns that I needed to and wanted to change. And I learned how to use new tools so that I could evolve into a more peaceful and fulfilled and balanced person. I would even say unbound, because oh my God, I'm up here telling y'all my story. So, to wrap it up, I would say that if any of you want to do that whole dating app thing, do it, but really be honest with yourself about your openness and your freedom with the experience. Because yes, love is out there, but it is super entertaining. Even when they tell you they want to introduce you to their father on your first date because he just happens to be there. Thank you.
That was Lisa. Lisa with an M. I don't know the whole last name. Morel, right? Moral. Okay, I've known Lisa for like 6 years. I should know that. All right, so our next guest is going to be Jen. Now, Jen's a little nervous, so let's just have everybody give her a big round of applause.
Okay. Hello.
That's my wife. 1 second. Is that right?
The one in front.
Okay.
Oh, like this, like this. Does this sound good?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, hello. Okay. So this story is a lot more wholesome and probably has a lot more deep thinking than this last one. So just saying. Okay. Okay, so we're in Switzerland. It's July. And whoa, okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. Okay. So we're in Switzerland. It's July. We is my husband, my son Sam, who's about 15, and my daughter Rose, who's about 12. And it's morning. It's a beautiful morning in the mountains of Switzerland, the Alps. And we are about to hike from one hut to another hut. So in Switzerland, they have these huts, which are these, well, they're just like they sound. They're a hut, but they're not near roads. They're only for hikers or mountain climbers or rock climbers or whatever. You have to get there on your own 2 feet. There are no roads. There are no roads anywhere near them. So you go and you get this trail and you hike from one hut to another hut. It's like backpacking, except you don't have to carry the gosh darn backpack on your back. You don't have to carry your food. You don't have to carry your sleeping bag. So the day before, we had hiked from this little beautiful picturesque village already high up in the mountains. We had hiked up and up and up and up and up, and at the end of the day, we found ourselves at this picturesque little hut in the middle of nowhere where they gave us hot cocoa, they fed us, and gave us these sort of amazing dorm-style beds. And so this next day, we actually had a shorter hike this day. We were going to hike just 3, 4, 5 hours to the next hut. Great day. We had one little problem that we had figured out the night before, which is that my husband realized when he hit the first hut that he had lost the map. But it's fine, because everybody at the hut, there's people who work at the hut, there's lots of other travelers, lots of other hikers, And so he sat with them for hours, actually looking at maps and talking about the way to go. And then you go over here, and then there's a crag, and then there's this. And so he knew where we were going. So we start off this morning, and it's beautiful. It's a little later than we wanted to start, but it's okay. It's a shorter hike today. So we start, and we're hiking, and it's beautiful. And it's, we're going up slowly, but you can feel it. But that's okay. And we keep going, and we're going, and we start to see snow and ice, little patches of snow and ice. But that's to be expected in July, even though it's July, but in the Alps there's always snow and ice. And we had expected it. So we're hiking, and then there's another patch, sort of a bigger patch of snow and ice that we have to cross. We can sort of see that the trail sort of goes up to it, and we can see that the trail starts again on the other side. But we do have to get across it, and it is a little slippery. And we don't have things like crampons or ropes or an ice axe. We have little backpacks with snacks. And we have, my daughter has 2 hiking poles. So that's good. So it's a little tricky actually getting across this patch of ice, but we do it, and we're like, oh great! And we've found the trail. We think we're on the right trail, and then we've crossed this patch of ice, and then this Swiss man, older Swiss man, old like 80, 100, like really old. He comes booking past us with his dog. Doesn't talk to us at all, but he's just going. He's like a marathon hiker. Olympic hiker. That's what I meant to say. He's like an Olympic hiker. He's just booking past us. So we're like, oh, okay, good. We are on the right trail because there's only one trail. We're on the trail. Great. We're going to keep following him. So we keep going, and more patches of snow and ice, again, to be expected. And then we turn a corner, and right there is a football field of a wall of snow and ice. And the trail just disappears into it. So we're like, okay. And when I say, I don't actually know how tall a football field is. This might have been multiple football fields. It was really tall. But we're like, oh, well, the trail probably goes around, and we're probably not going that way. So we're looking around, and we're looking for another trail. No, it seems clear, actually, the trail goes up, because we can sort of see there's a pass up there. It seems like the trail goes up there. Okay, well, but we can see, actually, that there's people have walked this way. Like, you can't see, like, one set, but there's definitely footsteps all over the place. And also, when we look, we can see that the man is halfway up with his dog. So he's just going. So we're like, oh, well, that's the trail. It must be a little better than it looks. So we start going up, and we're like, well, we'll just try it. And at first, it's okay. Like, we're sort of getting the hang of walking on ice, and we're doing our switchbacks, and we're going up, and it's hard, but it's, we're doing it. And we just keep going, and we sort of, should we keep going? Yeah, we should definitely keep going. And then right about halfway, we sort of start to look at each other, and we're like, we're only halfway. Should we really keep going? Like, is this really what we want to do? It's really getting very hard, and we're slipping a little bit. And we're like, but we've come this far. So we're going to keep going. All right, so we keep going, and then somewhere around like 2/3 of the way, might not even be, it might have been just over halfway, all of a sudden it's like, this is hard. What are we doing? So we're getting to the point where like every step is difficult. We envy Rose her poles, for sure. And at one point, but we keep going up, and we're just kind of making our way up this face. And at one point, Sam gets to this rock, and he just stops on it, like this sort of rocky outcropping. And then I sort of get there too, and Brad and Rose are somewhere else, somewhere maybe a little flatter. But Sam climbs onto this rock, and I climb onto it too. And this is not a flat rock. This is a rock that's like this. But it's a rock. It's not ice or snow. So we're on it, and Sam looks around and he goes, Mom, I can't get off the rock. I'm like, oh, by the way, this rock is about this big. He's like, I can't get off the rock. And I'm like, yeah, I can't get off the rock either. I don't know how I'm gonna get off the rock. So we're there, and we're thinking, okay, we can't get off the rock. The view is amazing. It's straight down, but it's amazing. And I think for the first time, like, you know what? This might be it. I might be on the rock. This might be the end. Like this might be, we've gone too far. We do sort of daring things sometimes, outdoors, stupid outdoors things. You don't go hiking in Switzerland, even in July, without crampons and ropes and poles and a car. and I'm like, yeah, we might be done. Well, obviously we weren't done because I'm here. Somehow we got off the rock. It involved Brad standing somewhere and throwing like Rose's pole like over toward us, and there was some pulling, and I don't know, but we got off the rock. We got into a slightly flatter point, and we were able to keep making our way up the mountain, because at that point we're like, we could see the top at this point. We're starting to be able to see that the top. It's really probably no further than that porch area, except that it's straight up, because that's what happens with mountains. They keep getting more and more and more straight up. So by the end, where every step is like pain, because our muscles are not, talk about weekend warriors, right? We've probably only done this once ever. And every muscle's in pain. And we're literally, it's all 4 limbs. Like we're climbing up all 4 limbs to get to the top of this pass. And we get there, we get to the top. And at the top, there's a bench. There's a bench, there's a sign, a very well marked sign. It's in Swiss, but or some language. It's not in a language I speak, but it's a sign that marks three directions you can go. And so we stand there for a while. For a while, we just stand there looking out below us at what we've come up. Because, you know, when you're standing at the edge of a precipice, you can really see a lot. And I'm thinking, as I'm standing there, just that sometimes the only way to get to the top of the mountain is to just keep putting one step in front of the other. So we sit, we eat our snacks, and then we're like, okay, what's next? There's 3 directions we can go. One is to the next hut. That's the plan. We're going hut to hut. We're not just going back to the old hut, we're going hut to hut. But we don't have a map, and the path to the hut that we're going is up. And we can't see it. It's not covered in snow, but we can't. It disappears fairly quickly. And we suspect that it's going to be covered in snow very soon. So we're not going to do that. All right, so it sounds like the way to go is to go back to the first hut. Okay, so how are we going to do that? So we stand at the top and we try a little bit. We try, oh, there's some rocky parts over here. We try, no, not going to go down the rocky parts. Oh, maybe if we just sort of sidestep this. No, that's not going to work. Brad, my husband, is like, I think we can do it. We just need to try this. But my kids, they know him. And they're like, no, we are not going down that. So there's really only one other choice, and that's the other side of the pass, where there is a trail, and it does go down, and it is not covered in snow. It goes down very steeply, but it's a trail. But we have absolutely no idea where it goes, because we don't have a map, and we don't read Swiss. Even if we did, it was just, I think, the name of somewhere. We don't even know what it's the name of. But sometimes, when you're going down a mountain, all you can do is just put one step in front of the other. Oh, thank you. Oh, my lavalier, thank you. Yep.
Okay. That was Jen Chan. Another one for Jen Chan. Woo! Her first time at the Fly. Okay, our last storyteller before our break is going to be Eric. Eric Peterson is going to come up and tell a story.
Yeah, okay.
Not challenging. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
all right.
Get your words.
All right. Can I pull this out like this?
Yeah, sure.
Walking around? Yeah, that might be better. Can you hear me?
Nice
Yeah.
Now.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Take it away.
Okay. On Saturday, July 30th, 1983, David Bowie would play the first of 2 sold-out shows at the Joe Louis Arena in downtown Detroit. Joe held about 20,000 people and was probably about 45-minute drive from the suburbs where I lived. It was 1983, the summer before my senior year of high school, and things were starting to happen. We we had gotten tickets, and they were upper bowl. So, you know, there was no secondary market. You could wait until the night of the show and try to buy them from people scalping them on the streets, but we weren't going to do that. So we had, you know, upper bowl seats. And in 1983, David Bowie was probably a decade away from his best music. We thought of him as older. He'd already had his hits. He was kind of past his prime. And then he came out with an album called Let's Dance, which was produced by Nile Rodgers and recorded at the Power Station in New York City. And the first time I heard that single, I was in the back seat of Rollo's Ford Thunderbird with Cheezer and Walsh. And Let's Dance came on, and the command, you know, under the moonlight, the serious moonlight, and I was all in. I was like, yeah. And so we got our upper bowl tickets, and we made our way to the Joe, and we saw Gail Urofsky and Stacey McCandlish, and they were a grade younger than us, but they were on the floor. And so they handed up their tickets to me, Bernstein, McGee, and Jubin, and 2 at a time we got down on the floor. So now we were on the floor, and we were like, okay. But the problem was we didn't have any seats. So we'd sit in seats, and inevitably people would come along either looking confused or even worse, accusatory, and we were like, oh yeah. So we came up with a plan, and the plan, it wasn't well thought out, wasn't strategic, and it was pretty naive. But the plan was simple, that when the lights went out, we would rush the stage. And then we wouldn't have to be watching from the upper bowl. We figured the crowd would overwhelm the ushers. Bowie would be fine with it. He'd want people to be close to the stage. And we'd get to watch the show from up front. So we're sitting there talking with Gail Urofsky and Stacey McCandlish. And there's people nearby, adults, dressed all in leather. They're smoking, they're drinking. They seem to be casting sidelong glances at us. We don't belong there. When suddenly the lights cut out. And so we start running. And we're running, and it turns out that a lot of people had the same plan. So now we're in kind of a stampeding mob of people that are running toward the front of the stage. And I begin to stumble. And as I'm stumbling, I'm thinking, I don't know, really? Do people die like this? Doesn't seem. How do you die like this? You get somebody steps on you? People fall on you? What? They smother you? Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a real way to die. Like, you can't really, like, even today, I think, like, an avalanche can't really kill you. You just move out of the way. This doesn't make sense. Now, remember, this was 1983. 4 years earlier, in 1979, in Cincinnati at the River Stadium, at a Who concert, there was a stampede, and 11 people were killed, dead. As in, like, dead. But I'm 16 years old, and you don't really think that you're gonna die. You think, yeah, you know, I don't know. At times, you feel almost omnipotent, and yet you're invisible. people don't really care what you say or do because you're not really there. You're almost powerful like a god, but at the same time, nothing you do really means anything. So I'm having these thoughts as I'm stumbling toward the front of the stage, sticking with my goal. I'm going to make it there, when suddenly somebody grabs me by my belt, the back of my pants, and lifts me up. And so I get slammed against some kind of like solid black wall. I put my hands up to avoid smashing my face. And I look up, and I'm at the front of the stage, and I'm looking up at the legend, the star of the stage and screen, of theater and film, a fashion icon, a rock god. David Bowie's right there. And I crane my neck because I'm at the front of the stage, and it's kind of like 12 feet high. And I'm like, all right, I'm here at the front. And I watched the show for 45 minutes like that. My friend McGee behind me, who grabbed my belt loop and saved me more or less. And the show is incredible. Now, Bowie had put together a sort of murderer's row of session musicians, and this one cat from Austin, Texas, had these just wicked licks on, particularly on Let's Dance, but he got kicked off the tour because he had a raging cocaine addiction, and Bowie was in recovery. So they replaced him with this other guitarist, Earl Slick, who had to learn 31 songs in about 2 weeks. And we didn't realize until a few years later we had the misfortune of not seeing Stevie Ray Vaughan. Happens. And so what we got to see was Bowie was kind of giving the people what they wanted. He hadn't been popular in a while. Now he had a hit album. He's like, you know what, I'm just going to give the people what they want. And so he broke out with Young Americans, Life on Mars, Fame, Golden Years, just a murderer's row of hits, right? He had to play the new album, right? So you got Let's Dance, China Girl, Modern Love, which was great. We like that stuff too. So at the 45-minute mark or so, they clear us all out. And ironically, we go back to what are actually our seats in the upper bowl, and someone's sitting in them. So we're like, all right, I guess we can't sit there. So we wandered around for the remainder of the show, but that was okay. I didn't really mind, We had rushed the stage, survived a stampeding mob, seen Bowie up close, and I was 16 years old, and it was 1983. Wow.
All right. Eric Peterson, everybody. Just a side note, I actually saw Stevie Ray Vaughan at his last concert. It was in Wisconsin, and it was with Eric Clapton. And we thought he was amazing, and that night we got home and we found that he got killed in a helicopter crash. So, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Hey, great time for a break, everybody. We're gonna have some drinks, we're gonna have some fun, we'll come back with 4 more stories. Thanks so much. Okay, everybody, we're gonna get started. Everybody come and sit back down. Here we go for the second half of The Fly. Let's hear it for The Fly, everybody. Okay, our first speaker in the second half is going to be Sean Greathouse. Sean Greathouse! Woo!
So I grew up in Seattle, and during the 80s and 90s, my parents had a kind of an extended group of friends up in the Skagit Valley. And it's north of Seattle, in the northwest corner of the state, kind of adjacent to the San Juan Islands, if you've ever been there. And think of it like a mixture of Fairfax and the Delta if you moved it up into Washington. So there was kind of this, extended cast of characters there. And one of them went by the name of Wonky. And I'd like to think that his real name was Wong Ki because he was from Cameroon. And he had a somewhat thick accent. But he was a little hard to understand, not just because of the accent, but because he was usually really screwed up. Some combination of weed and alcohol and who knows what else. But in his defense, I usually saw him at kind of these large party gatherings. So he wasn't alone, but he was a bit of a standout. Nice guy, never caused me any harm, and I think the worst thing I ever saw him do was maybe almost cut his foot off with a hand axe. That again, in his kind of what seemed like his normal state. I mean, maybe he'd put on a tie during the week, who knows? But you know, in the realm of out of bounds and bad behavior, he wasn't alone. I mean, the kind of our main friend up there had this big annual gathering on Guimas Island in the San Juans, and the inaugural party he had there, which he named the Guimas Games, was ostensibly a hydroplane race because he had bought a small hydroplane. So all of his friends that wanted to race, instead of buying small hydroplanes, took little dinghies that were maybe made for a 5-horse engine and just strapped like a 25-horse engine on them, and then drank 4 beers and went out and raced. That wasn't the worst thing I saw. Maybe the best one was there was a kiddie pool on the lawn outside this cabin, and a couple of guys decided it'd be a great idea to empty the water out and pour in a couple of gallons of gasoline and light it on fire. The kids weren't in it, so. But you know, this is a really interesting, eclectic group, and as you can imagine, one of the guys, Dana, he was a local, grew up in Skagit Valley. He was a fisherman. He bought an old hardware store and turned the back into a house, and the front was an art gallery, and it backed up onto a slough. And I was up there early to mid 90s, and it was his daughter's wedding reception there. So, you know, gorgeous. They had a lawn, they had a garden. It's on this slough. It's a sunny spring, early summer day. And I'm sitting there with my dad and some people, and Wonky was sitting there. And they had some labs, and the labs had puppies. And the puppies are, you know, rolling around doing what lab puppies do, frolicking, etc. And I was like, wow, look at those puppies. And Wonky's like, oh, puppies. Puppies are great. You take a razor blade and you slice them, and that's what I was thinking, I know. You slice them and this stuff comes out, and you scrape it off and you smoke it, and you know, I don't know what's going through your mind right now, but I was on the spot, and you know, some response was required to this, so my mind's going a million miles an hour, and the first thought was, Wonky, you sick fuck. I knew you were off the rails, but this is next level. And then I looked at the puppies, and right between us and the puppies were some poppies. So you know you're out of bounds when you're relieved that instead of being in the company of a guy who likes to mutilate young dogs, all he likes to do is grow his own heroin. So, thank you.
Sean Greathouse, everybody. Sean Greathouse. Woo! Okay, our next storyteller is Susan Kleinman, but let's let these ladies. Bye. Thanks for coming. Push. There you go. Bye. Bye. Okay. Susan Kleinman, here we go.
Yeah, sorry. I'm getting all set up. Okay. Wow, it's great to see everybody. Thank you all for coming out. I want to talk to you a little bit about my neighbor, who I'll call Willard, because his name is Willard. Willard is about, I'd say he's probably 75 years old, and he has lived next door to me. Well, I moved in there 17 years ago, which was during the George W. Bush administration. So that was a long time ago. We've been neighbors for a very long time. He grew up in the house that he lives in, so he's lived there for a lot longer than I have. And I don't know if you have anyone like this in your neighborhood, but he sort of considers himself the mayor, the self-appointed mayor of the street. And he spends a lot of time just kind of patrolling the area. He'll just kind of, I'm not really sure what he's looking for. He's like checking the drainage on the street or like the parking. You know, he's very concerned about a lot of things. He wants to write letters to the town. He also checks in on our elderly neighbors. There's a couple of much older women than him who he's known all his life, who live on the street, and he'll, help them. He'll fix things up around the house. He claims to have built part of my house, which he probably did before my time. So that's Willard. He's on my street, and I've known him for a very long time. And about 9 years ago, I was going through the worst time in my life. My kids were little, and their dad and I split up. And he moved out, and we ended up getting a divorce. Anyone out here gone through a divorce? Yeah. Would you say it was like the worst time in your life? Yeah. I mean, I would say probably even if you've had a super traumatizing life, it's got to be like top 3, right? It's like really bad. So I was not happy. I was really struggling. And during that time, one of the ways I kind of helped myself through that time was I started running. So I would go out and run all the time. And so one day I went out for a run and ran past Willard's house. He was out there doing something in his driveway. And I was on my way back from the run. And I'm going to just take a moment here to say, I wasn't sure, would I describe what I was wearing or not? Because, is it relevant? I don't know. You decide. I think it's not relevant, and yet I'll just mention. I was wearing leggings and a T-shirt, and I was on my way back from my run, and I walked by Willard, and he says, "You should go running in those pants more often." What the fuck, Willard? I mean, I was totally shocked and, really dismayed, frankly. I mean, he knows everything that happens on our street. He knows that my husband has just moved out. He knows that my kids aren't there half the time. I'm all by myself. And there's a lot of things he could have said, right? I mean, he could have said oh, are you doing okay? How are the kids? Can I get you anything? But no, he says, you should go running in those pants more often. Yeah, so that was unpleasant. And I went home, and I actually didn't speak to Willard for, I think, about 2 years after that. I'd see him pretty much every day, and I'd just walk by, and sometimes he'd say hi, and I'd go, hi, because I was trying to be sort of keep up neighborly relations or something. But I really didn't speak to him for about 2 years. And then, time went by. I was doing a little better. time heals all wounds, I guess. And, we're neighbors. So things happen. Like there was this drug dealer that moved in down the street for a while, and we were both kind of worried about it, so we would talk about that. Or there was a fire on our street, and the old women who live on the street, sometimes one of them would be in the hospital. So we started talking sometimes a little bit about those things and just checking in because we both cared. We both cared about the people on the street. And, so things got to be okay. But something much later occurred to me about that comment that he made, which is, maybe that was the last time in my life that I was ever sexually harassed. Yeah. I mean, maybe I've reached an age where I'll never be sexually harassed again. And that's really great, right? That's such a relief. I mean, it sucks. And when I was growing up in New York, I got harassed. Everyone I knew got harassed so much. And now it doesn't happen to me anymore. And it's great. And then at the same time, there's something a little poignant about that, being a woman, reaching middle age, getting to the point where you're not on that radar anymore. You're not on the harassment radar. And it's weird. You're just off the radar. And, it's not like everybody suddenly is really interested in my opinions. They're just no longer interested in my ass. So it's an adjustment. But I would say there is an exception to that in my case. His name is Doug. And he's actually very interested in both of those things. And he and I are, in fact, getting married next month. And so, we will be living together in our house next door to Willard until death do us part.
Susan Kleinman. Okay, so a lot of the people that you've seen here tonight are people from my improv group, and we're going to have another one in a minute. But we have someone who is not, we also have some people from the poker group and some other neighbors and friends up here as well. But we have someone new here tonight. I'm really excited to welcome Joan. I don't actually know your last name, so come on up, Joan. And this is Joan, everybody.
There we go. There's the clippy. I'll let you put that on the way you want to.
Right there, okay. And I go by JC, as I hear so does Jen Chan. It's good enough for John Cleese, it's good enough for us, right? And I have one friend because of the Joan Carlson thing, I have one friend who calls me Jetson, which I think is a cute nickname. I like that nickname, it's very good. Okay, so now what did I break it by, so. I know I can't, it's not,
What's happening?
it's falling this way.
no.
Ah, see, I did break it. Okay,
Is that
cool.
good?
All right, that's very good.
All right.
All
Joan,
right,
take it away.
thank you. Let's go like that. That's perfect. I just don't want to look down at it. Okay, so my story is a pandemic story, and it was right in the middle of the pandemic when we didn't know how long it was going to last. It's been days and weeks since I'd seen anybody. And I'm already kind of in tune with my environment. I did have my pets there and stuff. And this story reminded me very much of something that happened to me when I was a teenager. I accidentally killed a beautiful little honeybee that I'd actually been kind of playing with. It wasn't by hand, it was a total mistake. I stepped on it, was awful. Smashed flat in an instant, became something that I just the idea of it, I was just mortified about this. So years and, time goes on, and I became a meditator, and I became aware that, I have ideas about suspicions about spirituality and stuff, and I kind of feel like, well, that little bee was not going to live forever anyway. Maybe it had already stung somebody. It was only seconds away from dying anyway. But I became a rabid, never kill anything person. That is short of 3 things here on the West Coast that we have that I make it very clear that if you are a flea, if you are a tick, if you are one of those crazy little moths that eat sweaters, I'm going to have to dispatch you. It's going to go really quick. I'm going to say I'm sorry while I'm doing it. But essentially, I have let thousands of spiders go using the cup and card method. I let flies go. I let butterflies go. I've saved many dragonflies out of pools and bees out of pools and put them in the sun until they see them fly away and stuff. And that gives me, it kind of absolves me of that true sadness that I felt when I killed that beautiful little honeybee. So here I am in the middle of the pandemic, and I have a dog and a cat. This one warm day, I let my dog out. She's doing her ramble around. She's coming on in, and I come on, Bailey. I've got the door open. Come on, Bailey. Come on. And she's doing her thing. All of a sudden, this big fly comes in, and I'm looking. I'm going, yeah, okay. I'm going, yeah, hi, and it's like going, hey, and he flies in. Now I have had a bird in my life before, so you end up having a bird net. Bird nets are great for helping you get rid of flies out of your house. If you have a fly, don't be smush it or anything. Bird net, just like that, and then you close it off and you let out the fly. I was on my way to get the bird net. No big deal. It's in next to the cabinet in my office, and I pet on there, and I thought, maybe 2 tries, I'm going to get this thing. He's doing that low flying thing right about here, which if I don't handle it quickly, my dog is going to get it, or my cat is going to get it. But I had a pretty good thought that I'm going to get it. So I'm back there getting the bird net, and all of a sudden I hear, like this, and I'm going, what the? And I'm kind of walking around, what now? And I'm kind of looking at I pull the blinds back a little bit, and I'm going, oh my God, this spider is going woo, woo, and just like wrapping that thing up, and the fly is going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And a portal opened up. It was like one of those shock waves in those movies where everybody gets the blast and it just blows you across the room. You see your feet. That little fly, seeing me, seeing it, maybe the 4th time around, caught by a spider, opened this like kind of foggy portal where I could see what that spider was seeing. It's like spider face, spider face, spider face, spider face, like this. And I'm going, holy shit. And I was so having telepathy with this fly, 100%. I was looking through his eyes and mortified for him. The terror that was so a part of the last few seconds of every fly's life, right? Unless you're smashed by an instant, which you don't even see that coming. But I immediately, it's like going, seriously? And I put down the bird, the bird net, and I'm pulling this thing over, and I'm going, and the spider's up there, I'm kind of going, zoop, zoop, go. And sure enough, bless his heart, he goes running up there going, are you kidding me? That is out of bounds. I am a spider. I caught this thing fair and square. And the fly's going, oh God, please, oh please, oh please. And so he's hanging by a thread, and it's going, it's like all like this. And I'm going, mother of pearl, Jesus. Okay, so I kind of cup him on my hand, and I get a basket like a plate, and I get like a terry towel, and I'm going, okay, well, here we go. I'm either going to maul you terribly, or maybe I can get you out, So I'm on my hands and knees, near my porch outside, and I set this thing down, and it's a sorry business, this thing. The thread of a spider's web is uniquely made for one thing. And here it is. I've got this little fly in my hand, and he's got one wing is tangled and one wing isn't. His little back feet are all hogtied. I'm going, mother of pearl, this is going to be awful. And I'm going, okay, let's just try this. And and I knew, flies are not favorite. Flies, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'll hit the Pfizer hex after this. It's, whatever. But they do a miraculous job that nobody wants to do. Think about what flies do. And I was feeling this gratitude and trying to say, please let me not just maul you right now. And I'm scraping off the bit of web, and like I said, it's made for fly body. Fly bodies are actually, it feels just like your fingernail. Never crossed my mind. It feels like dry and smooth and going in one direction and stuff. And the spider web, even if you pull it away for a little bit, it's like it magnetically wants it to, it's like one of those molecular bonds kind of thing. It wants to just jump right back onto the fly. I'm going, God damn, and I'm fiddling this with him, and he's slipping out of my hands because it's very slick. But he was beautiful. He was, he was iridescent purple and green, and he's like, energetically, I felt him like whimpering at me, going, just do it, just do it. I'm going, I'm trying. And I must have sat there for 15 minutes calmly, extricating this beautiful little magical little machine that takes care of the dead things in our world, and I've got him almost done, and so I've got him like this, and I see that his little back feet are completely laced up, like there's a knot of spider webs on his back little hind feet. I'm going, well, he won't be great if he can fly away like this. So I had him, and I went into the house, and I got the finest like sewing needle that I could find. And I'm going, okay, well, buddy, here it is. Either you get away from me and flying around trying to do your stuff without your back two legs. That's not going to be great. But maybe, just maybe, with this tiny little needle, I will be able to scrape this last little bit off. And spiritually speaking, I think like this fly was maybe going to die. They only live like a whole month, maybe 2 weeks to a month, something like that. And I thought, I'm a meditator, and I tend to think, consciousness is a dimension, not a place. And this little fly, either way, whether he lives or dies, is going to go on, even if I accidentally kill him. And, we all get to have this expanding experience that goes on and on and on, because this dimension is big enough. It's not a physical place. It's big enough for absolutely all of us to just keep growing and being better and better consciousnesses as possible. And so I'm down there, and now here I am, and I'm trying to pick this little teeny bits of really tight wound spider web off of his little feet. And sure enough, and he kept slipping out of my hands, and I kept getting them. And finally, after, it must have taken, it could have been close to 20 minutes, I fiddled with this little thing. And I finally freed it, and I opened up my hands, and he flew away, and I felt that same kind of explosion. Like he was like, woohoo! And he was like, wow, 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 off he went. And that is me being an a medical technician there. And what I look at as the singularity is that he was probably the only fly in fly consciousness heaven that has that story. Thank you. That was so much fun. Thank you for making this possible. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. All right. That's terrible. That's so not right. Okay, we have one more storyteller. Now this guy, I'm not going to give him any pressure or anything. This is Drew. He is the head of our improv group. He's fantastic. Drew Merritt, everybody. Drew Merritt.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, I'm used to being on stage without a script, and so it feels a little strange. I'm gonna hold this. And we'll move this aside. So I was 7, and we were heading up to Mammoth Pool Reservoir in our 1976, probably 1976 Plymouth Valiant. It was brown, and we were towing a boat behind it. This was a family trip. It was my dad's side of the family, so it was my grandparents and my aunt and my uncle and their families. Now, my dad was an unplanned pregnancy, and so my Aunt Jan was 10 years older than my dad, and my Uncle Mick was 15 years older than my dad. And so, you know, I was 7, so all my cousins were like late teens and early 20s. And so they're, you know, they were caring about, discrimination and the environment and, you know, energy efficient vehicles, you know, the stuff that we don't really think about anymore. You know, but I, on the other hand, was, you know, I was into like superheroes, Legos. I was like 7 years old. And so, you know, it was kind of lonely in a way. But this year, I had Travis. Travis was a surprise. My parents surprised me with Travis. They had applied to this, it was a program through their church that allowed them, or the deal was you hosted a Navajo orphan for the summer. All right, and so Travis Jim was out, and so yeah, this program though, like it's very cringy now when I think about it, because you know what they were doing was taking a native North American away from his land, away from his remaining family and friends. From New Mexico, he flew out to us in the LA area, and then, you know, we Caucasian family, and we took him to church twice a week. And so, like, looking back on it, you know, it was basically like we were in a cult, you know, colonizing indigenous, you know, Native Americans. So, but I was 7. Travis was 7, and the cult thing was working great for us. You know, we got along great, and I have a picture of us hilariously. We're cracking up. The joke, I think, was that we had put our underwear on our heads. So it's huge. We were clearly enjoying that. And so I was gonna have a buddy at Mammoth Pool, at the pool. We called it the pool. And it's great. We could, you know, we're gonna talk about you know, superheroes and Legos. We're gonna eat s'mores and get it all over. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. About 40 minutes from the pool, we were hitting the steep part of the trip. Yeah, and so picture it. So my dad's driving, and I'm imagining this. This would be true to form for my dad. He was probably making some fart pun, you know, something like, "Oh, we may need to get gas again soon." Oh, never mind. Something like that. My mom is in the passenger side, worrying about a lot of things. My mom worried in bulk, which works out great, because if you worry about enough things, you're gonna hit on something. All right. And so I know she was probably worried about our immortal souls. She was probably also, you know, worried about getting in a car accident. You know, we were on the road. And I have a feeling in that moment, she probably was also getting very concerned about what my dad had for breakfast. Fart joke. All right. And then Travis and I were in the back. We were probably working on our next hilarious underwear bit. And then so the car was, like I said, it was a brown Plymouth Valiant, and it was a sedan. It was a sedan. It was like a middle-class commuter vehicle, and it was towing our boat. And I wish I could show you a picture of this Valiant, but basically the manufacturers just like put a towing package on the back of this sedan. They like put a hitch on it, and they were asking this poor sedan to identify as a recreational vehicle, which it really did not feel inside. And it stood up it advocated for itself. It overheated, and so my dad was forced to pull off to the side of the road. And Travis and my mom and I, we waited in the car. My dad got out and popped the hood, and he's pouring water over the radiator to cool it off. And as he's pouring, he hears a noise, and the car lurches forward just like an inch, and he's startled, and so he peeks up over the hood to see what's going on. And a few minutes before that, this guy, he had kind of messed up hair, a wrinkled dress shirt. I'm just gonna make up a name for him, Mr. Van Winkle. Okay, Mr. Van Winkle. All right, and he was like, I imagine he was heading back after an all-nighter of heavy drinking and unplanned pregnancies. I think he was heading home. I mean, that's what makes sense to me. Blissfully driving, trying to remember the girls' names, not caring at all about the popular venereal diseases at the time, just blissful, and he turns the corner just before where we're parked, and that's when he nods off, and wham, right into the back of the boat. And so we had an old Evinrude outboard motor on our boat, and he crashed into that, and the boat, flies forward. But Travis and I are in the back seat of the car, and of course, we hear the crash. There's the sound of the crash, and now the boat is sitting on the trunk of the car, but we didn't really feel it. And so I don't know if there's boat owners out here. But the way boat trailers work is at the front of the trailer, there's this long tongue, this long arm piece of metal, and it latches on to the hitch. And when Winkle crashed into the boat, that bar just bent right in half, and it took all of the force. I mean, all except an inch of the force of that impact. And my dad was standing in front of the car, so I don't think it would have killed him, but it wouldn't have felt good. And so the Valiant ended up with a perfectly V-shaped dent in the trunk, and of course the hitch was completely gone. And so happily the Valiant got to move on with its life. Identifying as its true self, hitchless, and so my dad, runs back. Winkle seems to be, okay. He's got a cut on his head, but now we're all out of the car, and Winkle's apologizing, itching. Sees my mom, of course. Hi, I'm Rip. No, he didn't do that. But he, but we were there, and at this point, again, like I'm 7 years old. The guys start talking about insurance or whatever. My mom is still worried about a car accident, still after the accident. So she pulls Travis and I up onto the hillside. And we're waiting, and I probably should have figured at this point, but my mom says, honey, we're not going to be going to Mammoth Pool this year. We're going to go home. And I was devastated. I cried. I don't know what Travis did. Like, he had never been, so he was probably like, oh, whatever. But I was like, I was upset, and my mom consoled me. My dad apparently took a picture of me and submitted that picture with the insurance claim. So we're sitting, up there, and I think back, and I think, oh, if I could travel in time and space and go back, what would I say, after this, after all my years of living? And I think I would say that, the unexpected things in life, the unplanned things in life, it can be great. You can make the most of them. And I had an unplanned father. I got an unplanned brother. And then, of course, unplanned Winkle crashing into the car. And I forgot he started a brush fire. Also, he lit a road flare in the dry grass, and so a few minutes later, we got to see it was 2 or 3 fire trucks. So after I imparted this wisdom, about the unplanned, I think I would have just sat down with them, and we could have planned our next hilarious underwear bit. Thanks. Oh, you need that? All right.
Yes, well done. Yep. All right. That was Drew Merritt, everybody. Drew Merritt. Woo! So if you're interested in Improv Marin, look it up online. They have a website. We are doing this again on July 12th. The theme is Lost, and I'll put the QR code up there. There we go. I'll put the QR code up there. And thank you, everybody, for coming. That's it for the fly.
One more announcement.
Yes, we have a question. We have a question from the audience. Yes.
Loving the story, time, evening, but with so many improv artists here, when are we going to do the improv?
We're working on it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Hey, everybody. Woo! Oh, yeah. Thank all the storytellers, and I'm Gary Rosen. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.